Exactly. Ah,
Oh,
we
I
are
know.
live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on which of our 25 countries you are listening from. This is Carl Wilder and Dr. Cohen on Expat Radio with Free Range. We have a very special guest today, Naomi. We have Naomi Lennon, who is an immigrant, but it's sort of different than the story Natasha and I have. She is an immigrant from Australia to the United States, the country most of us are leaving right now. And she went there on purpose and she opened up a successful talent agency. So we're going to
Mhm.
talk to Naomi today a little bit about her journey and about her agency and what that's doing and involved in, etc. So welcome, Naomi.
Thank you very much, Carl.
Tell me what made you go from Australia, and tell me where in Australia, because I
Mhm.
happen to love the country, to Los Angeles.
Well, yes, I was born in Sydney, in Sydney, Australia, but I grew up all over. So I grew up in Canberra, the capital, the bush capital, and but mostly in Sydney. I think all my life, the thing about being Australian was, unfortunately, we were exposed to too much American media, I would say. So, I felt very, so it's so far away. And, watching all these shows and everything, definitely in the 90s, you felt very isolated. So there was always a calling, whether that was through, maybe television propaganda, who knows? But, either way, I always knew that I wanted to leave Australia, at least go somewhere else. So actually, initially, I did move to London. Just out of school, I was 20
Oh,
years old. I did move to London first, which is a more typical thing for an Australian to do.
Mhm.
And I sort of, yeah, I'd forgotten about the US because even though I always wanted to move there. I had no ties there. I didn't know a single person. There was nothing in my family linking me to America. So I was in London for about 5 years, straight out of school, ended up getting a job there in advertising. And started being a media executive, but the idea of the US never really left me. And by the time I was, a few years into that, I started meeting people from LA. And, anytime I would come across someone from the US, I just found myself wanting to talk to them more and more. So there was something calling me to the States, and it was, something deep in me. So I had an opportunity, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go to LA for a 2-week vacation and just see what happens. I'd never been there before. So I just sort of quit my job. Everyone thought it was a little weird, but I quit my job and I just got on a plane. I knew LA. I didn't know anything about LA, so I decided to get my first place downtown. Which, if you're a local to LA, that is just not what you do, because LA is not. That's like the worst area that you want to be staying in. So it was an immediate culture shock as soon as I got off the plane. Was what
yes, I
I
can
never seen.
imagine.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I was there, but within that 2 weeks, one thing happened. I actually lost my passport in a taxi,
Oh,
which actually made me having to stay there longer. So now I had to wait, and so I had to be there for a few more weeks. And in that time, I ended up just meeting people, and um, something just told me that I should try and make my life there. I always had wanted to be a talent agent. That was always a deep down ambition of mine. So I tried to get jobs unsuccessfully. Definitely when I was there, I moved there in 2008. Now, if you were Australian, it was common to go to the LA if you wanted to be like an actor or an actress or something like that. But getting actually into the business, being a Hollywood agent, was just not something that was done. And so I just, got rejection after rejection. Finally, is just sort of beg someone for a job and ask whether I could sit in their office for free, which they agreed on. And that actually was the founder of UTA, a guy named Marty Bauer. And so he ended up training me on how to be an agent, which I was just very fortunate. But one thing happened, but I sort of left that job. I got another job at a company called Brillstein, which is the largest probably talent agency in the world, working with people like Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow. So I was in with the big A-listers. But I was I was always an outsider there. I wouldn't say I got treated very well. I was being pushed down a lot, and eventually, you know, I was trying to figure out how I was actually going to make this work. They paid you terribly, so I had no money. I was sleeping on, you know, my friend's couch, trying to make this thing work. And then I was already watching YouTube at the time, which was very early. So I was watching all these videos on YouTube, and I thought, you know what, you know, they had millions of views. I thought, you know, perhaps that's someone that I could try and sign. And that was at a time where no one was even thinking about content creators becoming what they are today, influencers. So I started signing them, and then within a few months, my clients on YouTube, and this is back in 2012, started making more money than some of the actors in the agency, which was, you know, so it was sort of crazy. I had these checks coming to the office, and all the other junior managers and assistants were like, what's going on here? Anyway, so, I mean, that didn't go so well. My boss was not happy with that. And so that, let's just say that job ended in not a good way.
Not happy that you were making money just because they were on YouTube.
Yes. So basically, what the how people make money on YouTube is what I think a lot of people weren't aware at the time. But you know, I was signing kids who were making videos in their bedroom. They were making entertaining, like, comedy sketches. And then you would have brands just call us up, like Pepsi or Yahoo at the time gave us a call, and I said, look, you know, do you want to, like, try and talk about your brand in our video? This was very early. So these were the first ever deals done with content creators. And because I had a bit of a background in advertising in London, it came in handy. So I was able to sort of put these contracts together on my own. But yeah, I mean, you know, so you were getting paid to make a 1-minute video, much, you know, more than what an actor was being paid on a week show on, you know, on TV networks. So, yeah, it seemed to be going well. So I launched Lennon Management, which was the first independent talent management agency in LA for content creators. At that time, Hollywood was kind of thinking about it, but no one was taking it seriously, and no one could see that it was going to take over. And I saw it differently. One of the things that really was the turning point was I was invited to an event called VidCon, which is very famous now. It's like it's like Comic-Con, but for our industry.
Yeah.
And it was the first one, and there was 400 attendees. And when I got there, you had kids who were aging, you know, 9 to 15, who had made their parents drive them across the country to see these people on YouTube. And they had already, they were telling me back then, they were like, I don't watch TV anymore. I only watch YouTube. I'm you know, it's all about Shane Dawson. And then I realized, okay, that's where the industry is going to go. Whatever kids are obsessed with, they're going to become adults, and you know that's their life. So that really gave me the confidence to really go all in. And then you know, a lot of things happened very quickly. So Google had just bought YouTube, and they decided to put they started something called the partner program, which is what we all know today. You know, when I signed them, there was no like pre-roll ads on any of the videos. There was no monetization. The monetization was only the integrations. And so I was put into a room with the head of you know, the YouTube partner program, and the first 50 creators to ever get monetized. And it was quite a funny experience, because a lot of the creators at the time, they didn't want ads. They were like, no, do not put any commercials on my videos, because they were purists. But of course, as the business went on, that became the largest chunk of their revenue, and it changed the world. It changed Hollywood. It changed everything. So yeah, I signed a lot of the early people to be famous on the internet, basically. So I've been doing this for 15 years now, and we've seen the industry develop in so many different ways. I mean, you know, Instagram, then we had TikTok. I worked in the Vine era, and it's an interesting time now, because content creators is such this is a job now that a lot of people have. There's thousands of management companies now. But when I started out, it was just me and like maybe two or three others, and we all knew each other because it was like it was a weird thing we were doing.
Sure.
But I would say that there's so much that I learned in that experience, especially about the Hollywood system, because I was basically pushed out of the Hollywood, at first. What we were doing was a threat. It was a threat to their industry. A threat through the movie business. It was a threat to the TV industry. And so at first they were very it's people take it for granted that everyone is on YouTube now, and like all of the networks and everyone uses social media, but it just wasn't like that. And so I've really have seen it through its entirety, and I'm one of the only people that have really seen it from day one.
Now that's it.
Oh,
That's
go ahead.
fascinating, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, Carl. That's absolutely fascinating. But what I watch YouTube sometimes, I look up the Graham Norton show or
Yes.
something specific. One thing I can't get my head around are influencers.
Mhm.
Probably because my kids are 30 and 27, so they're just too old for that
No,
phase
if they were 30 and 27, they were in high school watching the probably content creators that I was managing. So they're old now.
They do
but
watch
yeah.
some. Yeah, they do
Yeah.
watch some. I know that my youngest daughter, does follow people on YouTube. So yeah, they're probably some of the people you manage. And
Yes,
but I can't get my head around it. Somebody that says I'm an influencer, I have 1 million followers on YouTube. To me, that's like monopoly money, but it isn't.
no, I think it was a funny time because we were all very young. I mean, I had creators who were 15 years old, and I remember the most famous one that I worked with for 10 years. She was 15 when we met. And she'd come to me at a party because there was no other manager. She wanted to be a YouTuber. She was at school, and she came to me and she said, Naomi, I've heard about you. Can you sign me? And she lived in Philadelphia, and I was in LA. And I said, why don't you finish school first? And if you still want to do this, then give me a call then. But she was so ambitious, and she gave me a call the next week. And at the end of the call, she was like, "Okay, thank you. So you're my manager now." And she just hung up the phone. And she always but she was my smallest client. And then she had told me that, look, don't tell my mother, but she thinks I'm going to school, but I'm actually just making these YouTube videos.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm just making these, and she would kill me if she knew this. But she goes, but I want to become your biggest client. And and she did that. She became the fastest growing female beauty and lifestyle guru. She was at school at the time, and she started making millions of dollars. And so at first the parents were very upset, but then they couldn't really say, and they were very supportive. Her parents were fabulously educated, and they were not stage parents. So but yeah, no one really knew. So that, but what happened is during the pandemic, when everyone else's business had gone away, so there was only social media, then people started saying, oh, these people are getting money from these advertising. And that's when the industry really exploded. And we have now millions of creators. And so now there's thousands of managers in the world. But there's a lot of thought leadership I have around the current state of management. It's very different to what I built, because it was just a different time. I think when we were starting, we were excited for anything. Like, we would get phone calls and say, oh, can you fly to China for this or this, and we were just happy for all of it. Because I mean everyone. I guess we were just such underdogs.
Yeah, no, perfect. I love the underdog. I'm a great supporter of the underdog. Yeah, I'm in awe of of all this. I can tell you during the Johnny Depp Amber trial, we followed
Oh, yeah.
somebody I think called the Umbrella Man or something like
Mm,
this.
yes.
Yeah, that's who
Well,
we followed.
I think what's
Yeah.
interesting is not only did it take over people's entertainment, whereas people stopped watching TV programming, at least for the youth, it's taken over every facet of, I mean, working with content creators, I've worked with every industry you could imagine. So exactly, and now it's taken over news and journalism. I have a lot of friends that, all of their journalism is through social media only now, where before they used to be employed by a CNN or employed by one of the majors. But now it's, unless you have a following, you don't even get in a job. Or so I never saw that it was going to take over literally everyone. And basically the world has been pushed that we all need to be content creators now, which I find really strange. Because now, because before it was just, some strange kids who were kind of misfits making videos, and now it's like, well, if you're not making videos, you're not able to even, even people that own a restaurant have to become content creators. They're making videos, TikToks in their stores. So everyone has to be a content creator.
I have learned that the hard way.
Yes.
As someone who likes to hide from the spotlight, I run a tourism company, and social media is vital to us.
Yeah,
Yeah, indeed.
I never thought about being on camera either, but I think in 2025 the biggest turning point, and I think the biggest turning point is understanding that the platforms are more than entertainment. They're actually running, they can influence elections.
Yeah.
They need to say that, Trump won because of social media. He went on the right podcast. And, and podcasting comes into content creators as well. I have a lot of clients who do podcasts. So it's all of that. But it's yeah, the power to influence anything is now in people's social media following. And I think that this is the first time it's really been highlighted. And so we're going into a new phase where this is a lot more serious than the fun that I was having when I first started the industry.
Do
Now
you
it's
do
very
you
high
sign
tech.
up? Do you sign up new people still?
Yes, I always do. It's a lot of people call me now. So I don't really go after as many talent. But I'm, once you're a manager, the thing about being a manager is that you just love artists and you love creators. So, if I meet someone who is making something that really inspires me, I'll always want to work with them. One of a client who I work with at the moment is, I have a woman called, her channel is called Turquoise Kitchen, and she's very, very special. She is a woman from Turkey, and she's actually an expat who built a business from social
You know
media.
what? Get her for us, and we'll feature her on the show. I
Oh,
would
yes.
love to talk to her because she is one of your clients that I've heard of.
Oh, yes. So exactly. She had reached out to me, and unbelievable talented woman, and social media allowed her talent to get it, to get out. So yeah, absolutely. And one of the most wonderful people I've ever met too, which
I love
isn't
her.
the case for everyone.
No, I actually love her.
Indeed.
I love her videos.
Oh,
I
you
love
do
her
know her?
cooking
Of
tips.
course, yeah.
Well, I was a chef, and now I work in food tourism, so I'm always watching, for what's in food. I don't have a television. I haven't had a television since the 80s. If I want to watch something, usually Natasha tells me what to watch. I saw a movie, but I found it on YouTube, which she also told me you could find movies on YouTube. I did not know. But
Yes.
I like the cooking people who are organic in the way that they present things rather than the BS that comes from the Food Network.
Exactly. It's, yeah, she's a real purist, incredibly so. And yeah, and that's a circumstance where, social media has given good to many people in the world, because people don't have to go out and get a job anymore. You know, I don't know how the numbers, but it's a staggering amount of the content. The creator economy in the US it's like almost like $1 trillion business, and you know the stats that like 1 in 3 Gen Zers, their ambition in life was to become an influencer. You know, because
Yes,
yeah.
do you not find that that can also be dangerous? Um,
Mhm.
like, you know, that some of the contents can be dangerous. I mean, there's a debate, and I believe he didn't say it, but during COVID, Trump suggested that maybe drinking bleach would kill uh, COVID. He didn't actually say it, but there was some
Yeah,
suggest. Do you see what
I
I mean?
remember.
And exactly. But so and there was a blue whale thing that was going on for a while about
Mhm.
that, but that was years ago. And then recently I also read about a young man who died because he was doing some kind of a thing from an influencer. And so
Oh yes,
some
I've gone through all the scandals. We had the cinnamon challenge that everyone was doing
Oh
at
yeah,
one
yeah.
point, and can kill people. We had Tide Pods. Kids were eating
yeah,
washing
yeah, yeah.
liquid detergent. Oh yes, I saw it all. And then I had a client who was using Crayola pencils to do makeup tutorials. And we, you know, and so every kid was now buying them for makeup, and so they had to send us a letter, a cease and desist, because they felt because they were worried about being you know, sued or something happening. Even though those products are non-toxic, but it just was never meant for that. So yeah, it's yes. I mean, exactly. The influence of social media is something that we're only just dabbling into, and there's a lot of work to do, and people trying to, you know, put a box around it, control it. So we're going to see where that happens. That's why we're in the 2.0. We're probably in the 3.0 of it. That's going to be very interesting. You know, of course, the biggest debate of all time is, well, whose information is the wrong one? You know, because you're seeing all these other new platforms coming up, depending on it. It's so polarized. It is. But
Yep. Did
yeah,
you also produce a television series called The Fourth Door?
yes, I did.
Tell us about that. That's very interesting to me that you went from
Yeah.
management to production, because that's not an easy road to navigate.
So really, that came about because there is a film director, Tony Valenzuela, who had a YouTube channel called Black Box TV. It was one of the earliest YouTube channels where he was doing like short films, horror films, and he was using YouTubers as the actors.
Mhm.
He had made a short called The Fourth Door, which then was bought as a pilot by YouTube. And then the team at YouTube went over to and got a job working at Newform Digital, which was Ron Howard and Brian Grazier's company. And so yeah, I had never done producing before, but so Tony, again, it's on my reputation. He a lot of I did well because a lot of YouTubers just didn't trust the Hollywood execs. You know, they had a very bad reputation, whereas everyone knew that I was solid, or that was my reputation, still is. So he sort of just called me up and he said, Naomi, I've been given this contract. I have no idea. He'd gotten himself into another mess. His last manager, he was tied up in legal battles from some production company that was trying to, I don't know, steal everything. Or I'm probably naming too many names, but I'm sure he won't care. And then and so you know, he just gave me a call and he said, I've got this contract. I don't know what to do, and I don't really trust anyone else to do it. So I saw it and I thought we could turn it into something bigger than what he had. And so I ended up getting, so I actually told him, well, you know, because the idea was they were going to produce it. I said, well, you know, why don't I just get you to produce it? So I did. So I talked to Newform Digital and got them to agree for us to produce this, and I became executive producer. So yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, that was the first time being really on a set for something that was, over, in seven figures. Whereas, YouTubers, we make videos for no money at all.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
so we had a big budget. It was so much, honestly, we were in Joshua Tree for about 2 weeks, but it was in the hundreds. So, but it was it was a great experience. And in those days, they were still, all this time was experimentation. Everyone was experimenting with, can we make a series with a YouTuber and it does well? To be honest, they're still trying to work it out, because the answer is yes. It's just, again, there's been there's a slow shift, because we're taking too much of the pie of the other industries. So.
Yeah, network television, I know, gets phenomenally low ratings compared to 25 years ago.
Yeah, this is the thing. In my opinion, if you're not, social media is your only place to be. It's the only medium I care about. People always ask me, oh, you should, be, because I'm good at management. They say, oh, you should expand working with actors, and I'm like, I don't want to go to that old system that stuff. I think the best place is here. Yeah, and it's at some point everything else will either cease to exist or it's all going to merge. What we see already is that YouTube has more viewership than Netflix.
I know.
Yes, I noticed that YouTube. I didn't know that, but then I saw that there was a film or a series or something, and it was made by YouTube. And
Yes.
I was really surprised because, YouTube is actually making things now, like Netflix and Prime and all of these things. They're actually creating their own things, their own series, their own films, which, you have to pay to watch, but who cares? I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it very much is. And, the older CEO of YouTube, she really was doing a lot to try and open the market in that way. I remember they used to put on things in New York called Brandcast, where YouTube would bring all of the advertising executives and try and convince them, like, this is the new TV you should be spending here. So that it's funny because even though YouTube has the viewership, there's still a subsegment of the advertising world that has their old way of doing business. So it's just because it's taken over the viewership, it doesn't mean all of a sudden all the money flies into it. It's still a gradual thing. So
yeah,
but
of course.
without a doubt, it's the place to be. So
yes, look at people our age, people my age. I know what YouTube is. If you don't know how to do something and you want to find out how to do it, you go to YouTube,
that's right.
And and Graham Norton is kind enough to put his whole shows on YouTube, so I get to watch them on YouTube. But YouTube is so much more than this today, and I haven't quite gotten my head around it.
Well, that's because there's really nothing to get your head around. It's evolving. It's evolving. So here's the thing. People think that I always laugh because, I'm an expert in the industry, but I can tell you that it's not set in stone. We are making it up as we're going along. So,
absolutely.
But one thing I would say about the Graham Norton show, who I also watch on YouTube, is it's not really gracious. It's a necessity. So what happened in the beginning was the network shows didn't quite understand it, and they didn't want any of their IP on YouTube, and they would there would be lawsuits. But
really?
but actually, if they don't put it on YouTube, there is no marketing for this show, because no one else is watching anything else. So they have to put those short clips for Graham Norton on YouTube, because that's your advertising. Otherwise, they lose all viewership. So as it seems like this is very nice, but that's their lifeline, is putting it on YouTube.
Well, there we go. But YouTube has changed so much from the old days of Video Jug. which was literally things of how to do this, how to do that, precursor to YouTube. And now YouTube is actually a channel on its own. It's a media channel on its own.
Yes, and YouTube has changed a lot. Now, when I first started, I mean, like they always add new features, so it's also just not a platform that just remains. So the YouTube we have now is not the YouTube we had 10 years ago, and it's not the YouTube we're going to have in the next 10 years. So they're constantly, the product team is always building features. In the beginning, they used to consult with us a lot, because we're my clients were the ones who were consisting upload. So they always ask us, how would you want us to develop the platform? And so it's, and I'm pretty sure they're getting, obviously TikTok changed a lot because everything went to short form content. Before that, my YouTubers, they made videos for 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden these short videos took off. And so everyone's had to adapt. So people are now watching short form on YouTube, which was never a thing before. I know for a fact that TikTok Shop is having an effect on YouTube. Now they're going to shoppable videos. So there's just that's also why I enjoy this job, because to be good at it, you have to be on top of all of the innovations to be able to pivot and say, okay, now this is what's happening now. Oh, I should focus on this. If you keep doing the same thing, your business doesn't survive.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
TikTok. I mean, TikTok is so way over my head. You have absolutely no idea. I did put cute videos of my cat when he was a baby on it.
Yes. Oh, no, of course. I think it becomes over your head when you didn't see the evolution of it. Because if you just go into TikTok now, you just see it and be like, what on earth is going on? But there is a reason why we got to that. So, so TikTok was really, I guess, an iteration of, there was another platform called Musical.ly in like 2016, where people used to do like lip syncing, lip syncing video. And so that was really what it was. It was just, 13-year-olds doing lip syncing videos with their friends. Then it went to kids doing dance videos. So it was all very, very lighthearted stuff for kids to engage in. They also made it very easy to make videos, right? So before on YouTube, if you wanted to make a video and upload it, you had to edit it, you had to do all this stuff. That platform made it so easy that any kid with no equipment, not even a camera, could just use their phone, make a video, edit it in the app, and upload. So that was really the turning point. So now everyone was like, goodness, basically they opened the market for everybody to be able to make video. And so that's why it started growing. And then you started getting different kinds of videos in it. And then other people started, following trends, or some people started talking about, that's why there's so much and you don't understand. It's because everyone started experimenting with what would be possible to make. And now, and then they sort of changed the algorithm as well, so that it is very addictive. So they did that on purpose. So you have an addiction to scroll. And so they just did everything to increase the audience, increase the subscribers, increase the eyeballs, so that they can work out what their plan is now to monetize it. And of course, they, having bought by ByteDance, they're like, e-commerce is what it's what the Chinese know the best. And so they're like, with this level of audience and this level of eyeballs, let's turn it into a shopping network. So that's what they're doing now.
YouTube is becoming a shopping network?
No, TikTok is. So TikTok Shop. TikTok Shop. So now people are making videos and selling products, which you can buy in the app. Which is, so it is miles away from where it started with kids making, dance videos. Yeah. But that's why it's seen, it's sort of like, well, what's going on? Because no one really knows what's going on.
No, you just kind of write it, and the world
Yeah,
keeps
you're right.
changing rapidly.
Yes.
Well, I texted my daughter, who do you follow on YouTube? And she answered something that actually slightly blew my mind. About 100 people. Are you thinking of someone specific or looking for recommendation? And I said, just give me names. And the first one she gives me is Mark Robber.
Oh, okay.
Mark,
Yes.
he is the best engineer on YouTube, very famous. He worked at NASA.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't look
Yes.
at me. I
Okay.
mean,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Mark Robert. Yes.
and that's all I
That
have
is.
so far. But hundreds of
That's
people
a
she
good one to
follows.
follow. That's a good
You
one
know,
to
she
follow.
follows hundreds of
Yeah.
people. I had no idea.
Yeah.
You know, I thought she followed one or two, but apparently no. She doesn't have a television. She doesn't
That's right.
watch television. So
No.
her life is YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't run him over.
I
Sorry.
I don't have a television either, but I guess I don't watch that much of anything. But I do watch things on YouTube when Natasha tells me to.
Yes, because you can get old
Really?
films.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I obviously am on YouTube all day, so.
Well, yeah, but that's your job.
Yeah, it's what I know. I mean, I do enjoy it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Right.
No, of
But,
course, of course.
But I can say when I started the management company, I had no plan of where it was going to go. I just knew that I enjoyed it, and you know, it's you know, I think a lot of people when they start businesses have a lot more of a 5-year plan. I think if I was older, I would have, you know, maybe planned it a little bit more, but I was just happy that I was able to make money. And also what was great is I never had to go into an office. So we were doing remote work before you know,
it was a thing.
before it was
Sure.
cool. Yeah. So I was always traveling, which I just thought was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I at this point, I am working on a few things to sort of get my experience out there, because it's actually a business that I have taught to a few people now. So a lot of people who are interested in talent management are coming to me, and I'm giving them the roadmap of how to do it, because it is actually an industry that has a lot of growth because there's so many creators. And because it blew up so quickly, there's not really many resources on to learn how to do it. So that's
you're absolutely right. It grew up at an incredible speed.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I can say that it grew up and metamorphosized at such speed is because of people like you, who were there at the beginning.
Yes.
Said, you know, okay, let's, I'll manage you. We'll make it work. And that's the kind of people we need in every industry.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
Sorry.
I would, no, this is a great point, and thank you for recognizing that, because when I look at it, we didn't know where it could go. Now, I think content creators now, they get a following and they're like, well, this is my job. Brands are going to call us and this is going to call us. When we were doing it, we had to call other people and demand to get into rooms. We were like, I remember doing a book deal for some of them, and you know that I was there when we did the first thing for everything, and now it's easy to get a book deal as a creator. But by then it was like everyone thought they were taking such a risk on us. Everything was treated like, oh, you're so risky. Everything was risky. So it took a lot of hard work to sort of open up those industries and to open up the market, so people actually saw us as serious businesses. It's a very different world now. I mean, the creators expect a lot more.
But it's like television, you know. Oh, it's just a fad. It'll never catch on.
I heard that more. Yeah.
Same thing with YouTube. Oh, it's just a fad. It'll never catch on. Well, I got news for you. It caught on. very
Yeah,
much. And just like television,
it,
it's not going anywhere, you know.
no, exactly. Yeah. But I think a lot of, when I look back on it, there was a lot of people from the old world that thought about getting their toe involved. I remember at the time I went to a lot of, I won't drop names, but they were very mainstream, well known megastars who became interested in what we were doing. And I went to plenty of meetings, to their houses even, because everyone was interested in what was going on. So there was always like a curiosity, and they wanted to dip their toe in, but they never could make it work with us. And even like showrunners, sitcom showrunners who had massive series, almost made series with us, but it could never quite fit. So there was a lot of missed opportunity. So I get a lot of satisfaction now seeing things happening
Oh
like
yeah.
this is what we always should have been doing.
Yeah.
But the issue is that they were always interested in it, but they could not get their head around giving it the credit that it deserved. They always wanted to be owning everything. They always treated the YouTubers and content creators as like second-class citizens, that they weren't real celebrities.
No, but
And
I agree with you. I have to be perfectly honest. If you had come to me 15 years ago when you first started and said, I'd like you to invest in YouTube because it's going to go big, I'm afraid I would have been one of those people who laughed at you and said,
yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah, don't call us,
yeah,
we'll call you type of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a lot of that, but lucky enough, we were young enough not to care. So there's so much about timing in life. I was at the right
Absolutely.
time, that I could do it, and I was willing to take a risk. Where I had a lot of friends who were my age that had gotten jobs at the major agencies, the CAAs or whatever it was, and they were like, no, I'm on the right career path. I'm heading to the Oscars. I'm heading to this. And I'm like, I'm not really, that's fine. It sounds good. But for me, I could always see that it was dying. So, and I'm still young now. So now for the rest of my career, I'm in the right place. So it was a good risk to take.
You are.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
But
it's not just influencers, but I do believe there's a lot of singing stars today that started with
yeah,
recording themselves on YouTube.
Well,
And
Justin Bieber,
yeah, Justin Bieber, famous.
Ariana Grande with her impersonations.
Yeah. So the thing about that is there's two types. There's people that got discovered off YouTube, but when he got discovered off YouTube, they pulled him right off YouTube and they took him straight into the mainstream. Whereas
yeah,
being a content
yeah.
creator is that your channel and your social media becomes the business. So actually, probably if they did it again, they would keep him on YouTube because there's a lot of money there. He could have, I mean, it doesn't matter for him. It absolutely doesn't matter for him. But my advice is, you're not trying. Before, people used to try and get off YouTube, and even my own clients, they're like, I don't want to be making videos forever. I want to be I want to be in mainstream. I want to be an actor in TV. And I'm like, unfortunately, that's never where it's going to be. And even to today, actors always complain that they don't get auditions unless they've got a social media following. And so that's why they're all on Instagram. And a lot of them really hate it, to be honest. They really hate that they have to post like an influencer to be able to do their craft.
Yeah, no, I can fully understand that.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of voice work, and I like doing voice work because I don't get seen. It was really strange when I did some videos for it was a documentary about being an expat, which ended up inspiring me in a lot of ways. And I was talking about Berlin, and I went viral. It was people stopping me on the street to talk to me about my viral videos, people in different countries recognizing me. It was so strange. I mean, millions and millions and millions of views for about 4 months. I just couldn't get away from this online persona.
Well, was it a bad thing? It sounds like
Was
it was
it
a
a
gift.
bad thing? No, it was just a very strange thing. I
Yeah.
would get up
Yeah.
to go to the gym, and I would be walking down the street. So I saw what you had to say, and I want to talk to you. And
Yes. Yeah,
it
that
wasn't
sounds
bad,
great.
it wasn't good, it was just very, very strange.
I actually, this job did take me to Germany in the early, because in 2015 I got asked by, there's a conference called OMR, which is Online Marketing Rockstars in Hamburg, and I got flown out there to be a keynote speaker in 2015. So I did, and then I ended up being on the board of an influencer marketing agency there and doing some work. So to be honest, the creator economy is very strong in Germany. It's very strong.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. And I wasn't the creator, I was just the face, but it was shocking to me that video
They,
after video went viral, viral, viral.
they actually love social media in Germany. And the other thing is, a lot of my early like comedy signs, there was they were all being recommended to me by German friends. They were on top of things before I was sometimes. So I'm not too sure why, but yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, it definitely has an impact. But a lot of part of the job though is knowing how to make that last, because I've had a lot of clients at this point, because people go in cycles. Some people get famous really quickly and then just fizzle off, because basically there's just many reasons. I mean, sometimes it's not good to get these viral hits. Sometimes it's good to build slowly, because there's consistency that comes. But the people that get it too fast, it's hard to always top it for the audience. So yeah, and so I've had a lot of clients sort of burn out on that, because their first video went viral and then they needed to build a channel, and they just wanted the same thing every time, which was very hard.
Right. Well, my first video didn't go viral. I was doing a number of videos during the lockdowns just because my friend Ahmed demanded that I make cooking videos for YouTube. I didn't even know he was going to put them on YouTube initially. He said, "I want to come over and film you cooking so I can learn how." And next thing I know, I'm on YouTube. That was also strange.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to have to look at those, and maybe I can give you some advice or tips.
I don't want to do them.
You don't want to do them.
I don't want to do them. No, it was just Ahmed was. He did them sort of independently of me, and then once I learned, I said, "Okay, I'll cooperate." But I stopped once the lockdowns were over, because I'm not comfortable with too much notoriety. I did one commercial in New York, as a chef, and so many people stopped me on the subway. It was like, this is really uncomfortable.
But what's funny about the internet is it's forever, because
Yeah.
I had an acquaintance that I knew, Henry Phillips, who was a comic. Because here's another caveat. I originally wanted to get in. wanted to focus on the comedy scene. I was a stand-up comedy manager in the early. So I was, so I was initially I was always looking for funny talent. But I had a comic that I used to know at the Improv, Henry Phillips, and it was about 2013. And they were also slow to it. They were also slow to getting, and the comics hated it too. So stand-up comics always, because now they put all their clips on there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a huge complaint. They're like, I don't want to put my set online because everyone's going to see it. Because back in the day, it was not unusual for a stand-up comic to have a solid 10 minutes or a solid 5. And, because we had no social media, they could tour that around the country and, do the same bit every time. And so they didn't want it on YouTube, because they'd have to write more material or whatever it was. Now we know, again, it's the marketing. If you're not on social media, you're never going to get seen.
Yeah, no, I do use it for marketing my business. I absolutely do. And it's very effective. Natasha will be pleased to know that we have already in the first quarter of this year exceeded our total last year's sales.
Oh,
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
No.
Naomi said congratulations,
Yeah,
and I said that's wonderful. Yeah.
When two people talk at once, I lose it. I have two ears, but I only use one of them.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's
Well, I have a business. Well, it's not a business, is it, dear? It's Lycra.
No, it's a not-for-profit organization. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
it's an NGO. Yeah. And it's International League Against Racism and Anti-Semitism. I didn't found it. It was founded 100 years ago, about in France, and I just opened it in Germany because I thought this would be a pretty good place to have it. You know, basically, it's against all form of discrimination. We fight discrimination. Okay. I fight discrimination around Germany right now, around Berlin, but of course there's offices in New York. It's all over France, Belgium, Spain, Switzerland, Austria, and now Germany. How going? I mean, I have a Facebook page and I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't know how going on social media could help me. For instance, I'm just giving you a for instance of what could someone like that do on social media to get the word out.
I've worked with quite a few nonprofits, and it's just like any other business. Social media is where your eyeballs are. It's where your audience is. So there is plenty to do. You can do various things. So I mean, one of my clients, I mean, she did everything for, like, she loves dogs and she's animal rights. She did tremendous amounts for, like, pet adoption and lots of stuff for some of those. I mean, there's plenty to do. So really, I think what I would do is take any, because like any business, there are campaigns that you're doing. Perhaps there's a specific campaign or something you're trying to raise awareness. It depends what your aim is. I don't know if you need someone to donate money, just raise awareness, or you want people to attend something. If you work out what the aim is, then we aim at that audience, and there's plenty to do. Yeah, you can do influencer marketing. A lot of people, of course, work with content creators to get out their message. But you can also hire someone. I know a lot of TikTokers who are going in-house at companies to run their social media. So they'll make all your videos, they'll run your accounts, they'll get you the audience. There's many ways. I'd have to look at what your overall aim is. But yeah, I mean, that's the sort of the theme you're talking about. There's a lot of room for that right now on social media, because I'm on social media a lot, and unfortunately there's a lot in the comments, there's a lot that I'm seeing that probably needs to be combated. It's without getting into it, it's a little concerning sometimes what I see on social media.
I totally agree with you. People use the anonymity to vent, and you get so many people that say the most horrendously horrible thing. Okay, like for instance, there was the person, yes, she shouldn't have taken the wombat from her mother, from its mother.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Oh yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah.
Okay, totally shouldn't have done that. Okay, that was a silly thing to do, but we all make mistakes. Death threats may have been slightly bit OTT. Yeah.
I'm going to make it, because I'm Australian. Okay, so that's in Australia. As soon as I saw that, I could just see the cultural difference. So I always just took it for granted growing up in Australia. But you were just instilled in you that all of our animals, the fauna and flowers and everything like that, is very protected. Everything is heritage listed and everything's protected because Australian animals are, native and they're special. So you don't touch any of them. Like, I had all these kangaroos around us. You wouldn't even think. So even as a child, if you saw a wombat, for an Australian, that is the worst thing anyone could possibly do, is even touch our animals. Whereas, I'm obviously live in the States. We don't care. We got lots of squirrels. We got lots of things in the forest. They aren't seen as like, they're all on the endangered species list is our animals. So that's, and so when you grow up with that in your head, no one should be sending death threats.
No, that's silly, isn't it?
When someone does that, obviously there's so much more going on, and it's not about the wombat at that point. That their issues are way beyond whatever they saw. But
yes, exactly.
When I was in Australia, when I was in Australia the first time, it's a fascinating country. I've been 3 times. The first time I went to a koala bear sanctuary, and the woman is making her announcement on how to behave, etc. And this little baby koala bear comes up to me, and I pick it up and I'm cuddling it. And she gets to the point in the announcement, whatever you do, do not touch, reach for, or try to hold a koala bear because they can kill you with their nails. And
we would never touch them unless
right, and I'm cuddling this little baby koala bear. And I took one hand up and raised it, and people stepped aside, and she saw me, and she gets on her walkie-talkie, and these 2 handlers come in with leather gloves and protective gear and take the koala from me, and which is fine. The baby just came up to me, and what do you do when you see a baby? You pick it up, and we're walking through the sanctuary, and this little bear is following me, and finally, the person got back on it. She said, we need to do something about this bear. He's following a guest, and he's trying to get the guest to pick him up again. And another person comes in wearing the protective gear. She goes, oh, that's all right. He was hand raised. It's fine. He just wants a cuddle. And so I picked up the bear again and was allowed to carry the bear through the end of the tour because that was a hand-raised koala.
I'm going to say something only because if Australians are listening and they can hear I'm Australian, they're going to call me out. But when you're in Australia, we have to call every single person in the world that we don't call it a koala bear. They get really offended if you call it a koala bear. It has to be just a koala. They literally, when you're at school, made us a song called "Please Don't Call Me a Koala Bear," and they made us all sing it. So they would drill it into you. So now every Australian, I know that to us. I've been living in the States for 15 years at this point. I do not care. But that's a funny thing.
That's funny because in the States, we're taught that they're koala bears. We're never taught that they're just koalas.
Well, that makes sense to me now because why? I don't know why they get so upset about it. They really do. It's sort of like when Americans say to a shrimp throw a shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Crocodile Dundee. That was his line.
Yeah, and everyone gets upset because we call them prawns. We don't call them shrimp. And so so that was just ad-libbed for the American market, but that's not what we say. So they get so offended when Americans say that.
And in Spain, we call them langoustine. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. There's got to be a lot of cultural differences. When I'm in Australia, I still feel like it's a little bit of the Wild West in many ways.
Yeah. It isn't. You know what?
We don't.
Yeah.
So sorry. In France, we just call them koalas because it'd be silly to call them a koala ours. That would be a silly thing to call. And in France, we have prawns, we have shrimps, and we have langoustines. And you know what? It's 3 different things. It's 3 different animals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We seem to have temporarily lost Carl.
Well, here's
Yeah,
the thing.
sorry. Minor work crisis. I'm having to respond to a text. I was trying to be discreet.
Right. But I was going to say,
Don't worry,
you know,
dear.
like those like little prawns or the little shrimp. I know because I'm in Norway and we eat those on a bread. They're yeah. In Australia, you typically eat the king prawns, like the larger ones. So
Yeah.
it's But here, I mean, I don't get sensitive at all. I mean, I've lived in many different countries, and it doesn't, you know, I
You
don't
live in
have that.
Norway right now?
I am living here at the moment, yes, in Oslo.
Interesting.
Um,
So you've gone from
Oh, you're
Australia
not
to
in
the
LA.
UK to the
I'm
US
not
to
in LA
Norway.
right now, no, but I mean, I will be going back, but I'm spending some months here. Yeah, so and
Oh,
because
wonderful.
I've got a family here.
It's a
So you're
beautiful
in LA.
country, shockingly beautiful.
I'm in Norway at the moment, right this
Oh, okay.
moment.
Okay.
But yeah, no, no, I still am in LA, but that's the thing. I do travel a lot, for various reasons, family, and I just don't have to be in LA right now.
No, that's great. When you do remote work, which I also do, I can travel as well, which I very much appreciate the ability to do that.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
look at
definitely.
me.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you're in a car right now.
Yeah, I'm doing a show from a radio show with over 1 million listeners in a car.
Mhm.
Although last year I did it in a boat. Oh no, year before that I did it in a boat. So just goes to show you.
Oh, so, but are you from France? No,
Yeah,
you're
I'm French.
Oh, you are French.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So you're not an expat there. That's what I meant.
But I lived 10 years in the US.
Oh,
And I lived 2
okay.
years in Canada. And I lived a few years in Switzerland. And a bit in France. And now I live in Berlin.
Oh yes, Berlin's fantastic. I spent 2.5 years in Tulum, Mexico, during the pandemic. So
Oh,
and I have So there was a lot of expats down there. I love Mexico. That's another place
me too.
that I would
Me
go.
too.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But there's a lot of complications. I actually had I had a child down there when I was there, so she's got a Mexican passport and I've got I can live there. But it's starting business there is a whole other thing. This is
Yeah, Mexico is an interesting country. I mean, the food is exceptional.
Yes, I mean if you go down like especially Oaxaca and those kind of places, it's
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was in Oaxaca.
Yeah, I have been to
Yeah.
Oaxaca,
Yeah.
Mexico City, which has everything from all over the country. Every kind of Mexican cuisine you can ask for is in Mexico City. Just incredibly delicious. Have you got a Mexican chef that you represent? Because I'll watch him or her.
just Mexican. No, to be honest, Turquoise Kitchen. I think she does Mexican very well. She does. I want to get her down there, and I think she wants to. I think she would like to travel and because she's got such a passion for food that she would like to learn all that. But I mean, who does it well? Ray Bayless. I don't know. I mean, you probably know more than I. There's so many cooking channels popping up now.
Yeah, I just don't watch
It's
most
blowing
of them because, I mean, many of them try to replicate the kind of crap they find on the Food Network, and they turn everything into a contest or a war, which to me is the opposite of what cooking should be. Cook with love,
Yeah.
share what you know, and feed people. It's nutrition. It's love. It's not
Yeah.
meant to be war. It's not meant to be a battle.
Yeah, exactly. That's just like it's a Hollywood thing. You have all these eyeballs on something, and it's like, well, they have to make a format, and then they see the syndication of it, and that's why formats are always pushed.
And I would love to see a television show without a format, just one where that is completely improvisational. Go to
Well-
a temple, whether you're cooking or eating, whatever, just make it up as you go along. And real reality television, that is something that just isn't done because reality television is planned down to the last minute?
Well, I have a girl in, well, I don't have actually. I follow on Facebook a girl from Croatia because my father was Croatian, so I'm half Croatian. Her name is Eva Kovac, and she cooks. She
Okay.
mostly does pastries, but she does other things. She's wonderful. She has Down syndrome, and she cooks like a goddess. And she is on Facebook. But so everything she does, of course, is from scratch, but it's also, as you can well guess, absolutely not formatted in any way, shape, or form.
Good.
So sorry, what's her last name? I have to look this up. Eva.
Eva Kovac,
Okay.
I shall
Okay.
confirm it, but she is amazing, and everybody loves her on Facebook.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't follow.
Kovac. Eva Kovac. Yeah.
All right, you'll have to send me a link. I tend not to follow people anywhere. I'm terrible that way. If I come across something like Kokalar Cooks on Instagram, because I'm posting on Instagram, I will watch her videos. Are you familiar with her, Naomi?
No, but sorry, what's it? Maybe I am.
Kokalar Cooks. She is a woman, maybe 30 something. She makes these incredible short form videos, step by step, of how French people cook at home, how Italian people cook at home.
Oh, no,
the best
Novak.
roast chicken. And she tries multiple recipes for roast chicken, and her most recent one is marinated in buttermilk, rosemary, salt, and garlic, and then taken directly out of the buttermilk and with the milk still on the chicken roasted. Looks gorgeous on video. Novak, okay. Novak.
So it's Eva's Croatian kitchen, and it's Novak. I don't know if you can see it here.
Kitchen. Thank you. Yes. No, I got
No,
it.
we can never see your phone.
But you know, social media has changed the cooking world incredibly. Because all of the celebrity chefs that we know, you know, the ones that who've dominated the last 20 years, they're all, not only are they aging out, it's just how that sort of era of how to become a celebrity chef is going. You know, a lot of them were. Yeah, they all worked in a restaurant, first of all. They all had that sort of training, and then that sort of dictated how they were. The content creators, most of them haven't had traditional training at all. So they're not really jaded by the way it was, and they're dominating everything. I mean, I you know, it's, you know, you just see it in the authors, like the latest book we did, the Turquoise Kitchen's first release, made the New York Times bestseller list, and it's her first book, and she's never been in a restaurant. And you know, it's amazing to see these names next to very traditional style. So I mean, the whole idea of food and how we look at it and is changing rapidly, and so there's a lot being done in my industry to figure out what is the next iteration. How do they monetize it? There's all these new business ventures coming out. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. So it's one of the most exciting areas for me in social media.
I would agree. And I don't care whether someone has worked in a restaurant. That isn't what makes a chef. Mothers and grandmothers have been teaching chefs like me for decades. If it weren't for those teachers, those chefs, they're the most important chefs on the planet, because you give an Italian mother a handful of arugula, 1 clove of garlic, and whatever's left over in the kitchen, and she'll turn out a meal that will make you go, wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same thing for Croatians. I mean, I can remember my grandmother making phyllo dough from scratch, and the entire dough would be stretched across the kitchen table and then cut up and then put with wet towels, and then she'd start again. And that's how she made like Apfelstrudel, which is strudel jabuka. But everything my grandmother did was from scratch, and I'm unbelievably lucky because my mother was a terrible cook, terrible.
Mhm.
And my father was used to his mother's cooking, so he was very demanding. And anyway, so she asked her mother-in-law for recipes, and we are incredibly lucky because she wrote them down, and we have the book.
This is
So
great.
we have,
Well,
so of how things were made originally by my grandmother.
yeah, I think that the key element is was written down, because my mother-in-law, who's Norwegian here, she just makes bread from scratch, which is just normal for her. They make everything. And let's not forget about the knitting that I see going on here. That
Oh,
just
yes.
me away. That blows me away. But so I asked her, how do you make this bread? She never thought about it. So, I had to, and so she didn't know how to write it down. So I made her film herself making it so I could just see the steps. But yeah, they had no measurement. Turquoise Kitchen didn't have a measurement for her book. That's what took her the longest.
Yeah,
She had to
they
figure
had
it
no
out.
measurements.
Mm.
They put this and, consistency.
They
Yeah,
just
that's how it feels.
I had to write a cookbook for a family. I met this incredible Szechuan chef in New York. She was very old when I met her. She was in her 90s, 96 already. And she asked me, we started talking, and she asked me if I wanted to learn Szechuan food. I said yes. She said she would teach me if I could turn what she taught me into recipes for her grandchildren, and when she died, give it to them at her funeral, because the taste of her food is what they always talked about. So I spent 2 years in her kitchen in the evenings learning these food. And what we did was reverse measurement. I would put, a little pile of 5-spice powder on a scale and see how much she took off with her fingers. So I'd know what the measurements were. She was very consistent. So she'd do something twice, and then I'd do it once to make sure we had it right. She was incredibly consistent, but she never measured a single thing. And we got this all down for her grandkids. I went to the funeral. They saw it, and it was Weep City, because that was the only thing they wanted from their grandmother. She didn't have money to leave. She didn't have, possession. She had her recipes, and they were thrilled to get them. I'm so glad I took the time to do that with her. And now I can cook
Oh,
Szechuan.
absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But
I think there is a desire to go back to this time, especially in COVID. Okay, when I felt like everyone, like Uber Eats became way more popular than it ever has, and it's just so depressing. It just brings down your spirit.
Oh yeah.
These apps just, and there's all these cloud, I don't know if you know about cloud kitchens, but it just feels like there's something it's not just unwholesome. It's almost like unholy. This, we're just being told to consume, very efficient, high priced, all of this stuff. So yeah, I'm hoping I'm very happy to be involved in that as well, and seeing where we can take it.
Yeah, well, that's why it was interesting during the lockdown. Again, I was people knew me in Berlin. I was having people in the grocery store come up to me and ask me, how do I make rice? Because they never had cooked before. And Germany doesn't, now it does, but back then it was just beginning with delivery. And during the lockdowns, delivery got bigger and bigger and bigger. Now there's about 6 companies competing for those delivery dollars. But at the beginning of it, delivery was not normal.
No, exactly.
No. But I also find that, strangely enough, I have adapted with the movements. I'm a great fan of Lieferando and things like this. And I read all my books on Kindle. I do have some paper books, but 95% of the book I read are on Kindle. My children cook from scratch. My children like paper books. They like the feel of paper.
Yeah.
So my children are going back.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you find a difference on the Kindle. I mean, it depends if you're a real reader. I don't read as much as I'd like, but for me, yeah, it's but when I'm holding the book, I feel yeah, like I'm gaining a lot more than the story. So, because I mean, I'm online all day, so it's
Yeah, yeah. Well, so's my eldest because she makes trailers for films.
oh, okay. Oh yeah, well, she could start a YouTube channel. She,
Yeah,
so
so
yeah,
she
she
works with
understands
a
content. Mm.
so that's what she does. She makes trailers for films. There's a new French film coming out of June. The trailers that'll be in French cinemas coming up soon will be hers. She made the trailer for what's it called, Beetlejuice,
Oh
and things like
wow, yeah.
yeah. So that's what she does. She makes trailers. So she watches
Oh, that's right.
hundreds
There
of
was a
hours.
Beetlejuice sequel that came out. I forgot
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
What?
So that's what she does.
No, well, I
She
mean, it's
reduces everything to a minute.
that's why I should be good at social media because essentially all you're doing is trying to captivate an audience in a short amount of time and tell a
Oh,
story. So it
that's
is
her
very
expertise.
similar.
Yeah.
Yes, and actually the best, most successful people on social media are the ones who know marketing first because it's about marketing. I think that was the real difference between the content creators and the traditional stars is they are all about marketing. Whereas before you would make your film and then send it to someone that knew how to do that. Now it's like marketing first. So yeah, that's, which is a good and a bad thing. There still needs to be a place for art. And I actually hope that social media, I think, make some room because right now, since the pandemic, it's gotten overly commercialized. And when I first built the business, it was not so that we could make a bunch of commercials. That's not what drew me to the industry, which is what has drawn a lot of the other managers to this because it was commercial. They were like, "Oh, we're just going to make ads, and take a cut." I do have an appreciation of the artistry of things. So yeah, I think we will go back. I think AI, we have to talk about everyone has to talk about AI in every conversation now.
Oh, I forgot about AI. Yes,
It has
AI
to come
makes
up.
very successful content.
Yes, but I always have an idea that AI might eliminate a lot of the content creators who are just making commercial content that don't have an artistry skill or are not real creatives. Because that's I think if AI, because I mean you go onto TikTok or you even go onto Instagram, whatever, and a lot of what they're making it's not, it doesn't stand out for any reason. It's something that AI could easily generate. Whereas if you see videos like Turquoise Kitchens, I mean they're like therapy for people to watch, and I
Right.
think so. Yeah. So
I saw an AI video that they're taking content from other video creators, cooks, chefs, home cooks, whatever, and they're imposing a cat. And so the cat is taking over all of the movements and they're recreating the food with AI. So it looks like the cat is cooking and then it has a synthetic voice, but they're essentially stealing content and turning it into cat videos. And it's hugely successful.
yeah, I mean that is appealing. I think yeah, here's the thing. I mean, if someone's using human hands to make something, which is, even though it's AI, it's still someone's ideation.
Right.
Then I mean, arguably that's artistic in its own way.
Well, yes, but they're stealing other people's content. They're not, the person making the cat videos is taking, say, one of your videos and turning it into a cat video.
Yes, I think that's been an issue for a while. People have whole channels and whole businesses based on like do a split screen where they comment on someone else's video or do
Oh,
a
yes.
reaction.
Uncle Roger. That's his
Yeah,
deal.
there's a lot of those. So, this is the same thing. You kind of built a brand on someone else's work. There's a lot of talks going on right now about IP and how that's going to be navigated. But like with any new technology, when it first starts, they kind of just let the market go wild to see where it lands, and then they rake it in. They try and reel it in. I mean, I remember Viacom was suing, and Universal were suing YouTube for the first 10 years. Because it was all of their IP. But they just went on, and now they made a deal, and the rules are, some of it we can use, or we split the revenue with them, which is probably what will happen with the cat videos. So once they get monetized, the original owner will have a cut of the money.
Well, that's if you can get your hands on the IP guy, because if the IP guy is in the middle of nowhere, and kind of secretive, forget it.
So I guess a lot of people don't know this, because you don't have to, but we have a thing called content ID. So every piece of content that is uploaded to the internet does have an ID, so we can find it and track it. And there are companies that go after IP violations. I mean, that's what happens with music. So right. The big majors don't sue you immediately. They claim money from it. I had a situation where a creator was using music for a long time, maybe about 8 years, and had no claims. And one day when their channel got to a point where it was making 7 figures, then we got a letter where they wanted everything. So it's stealing someone's IP. They will get you in the end. So
I hope so, because I'm not a fan of theft of content.
No, exactly.
No. Well, I'm sitting next to a lawyer who's driving, so
yeah. What about people that do the commenting videos? Do they also then pay the person who made the video that they're commenting on?
No, not at the moment, because I think if you're commenting on a video, and maybe now I know you have a lawyer, I wonder if they're like going, that's not right. But I think if you're commenting, it can come under fair use. I wonder whether they get away with it that way, because things that are in the media, it's like that's like a news program. They say it's fair use, or the other way, yeah. It's the same in comedy. Like if you make a sketch, a sketch, but you're making fun of something or someone else's IP, that comes under fair use, because it's what's the word? There's a word for it. It's not satire, but you're, whatever else it is. But yeah, so there are some caveats that you can get away with it. It's just, you just have to kind of walk a line.
Interesting. Yeah, Vincenzo's plate, he made his career commenting on other people's videos. And now that he's making his own videos and creating some recipes, he's getting raked over the coals for not being authentic Italian.
Ah, yes. Well, I guess, this is what happens. They come after you when you start doing well.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. He used to criticize Gordon Ramsay. Justifiably, Gordon can't cook Italian food to save his life. And Jamie Oliver, also really bad at Italian food. British chefs generally can't do it. They grew up on spag bowl. They overcook their pasta. They don't know anything. But now he's started doing his own and saying, we're going to do this, and we're going to vary this. And people are coming after him saying, hey, you criticized Gordon Ramsay for putting mushrooms in his carbonara. You can't do it now. And so his career it's interesting. People are criticizing the hell out of him now that he's creating rather than criticizing.
He puts mushroom in his carbonara?
He did a variation. Of course, mushroom doesn't belong in carbonara, but he did a variation for the vegetarians.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Yeah, I mean, the Italians are very famous for that. I see a lot of videos sort of making fun of Italians they have their rules, no cheese with seafood, no, but but yeah, but you also have lobster mornay in, some places. So there's so many rules, or, you don't, they have the bread, but they don't mix it with the balsamic that a lot of we do.
Right. And it's interesting because I come from a place, no, my apprenticeship was in Italy, and no cheese with seafood is absolutely a rule there. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I come from New Orleans, where we take
Yeah.
Parmesan cheese and butter and put it on an oyster and put it on a barbecue grill and serve
Yeah.
that with some garlic. And I did that for some friends in Italy, and they loved them until I told them there was cheese on the oyster. Then they didn't like it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that's poured down. And of course, we always have those hilarious videos where, like, making an Italian watch someone break spaghetti into the water and they just
Oh,
freak out.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you have. I've been in Airbnbs or other places like that where you don't have a big pasta pot, and I broke the spaghetti. Life went on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one died. I didn't lose an arm or a leg. The spaghetti was broken. It tasted fine. I didn't overcook it. That is one of those
Mm.
controversies that is just BS.
I
Sometimes
get, yeah.
you're cooking. You just need to adapt.
Well, I guess because it feels like maybe Italian food is the most appropriated around the world.
It's the most
Yeah.
disrespected.
Yeah.
And I agree with. People will take the name of something Italian and throw it on anything. For instance, this one bugs me all the time. I made a cabbage lasagna. No,
Yeah.
you didn't make a cabbage lasagna. Lasagna is the name of the pasta. You layered cabbage with some other crap and made a casserole. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
a casserole, but it's not a lasagna. Lasagna has a specific meaning, and they
Yeah.
will get mad at you. And even Julia Child did not properly respect Italian food.
Yeah, that's right. And I've had a lot of, like, Italian friends come to New York and be like, this is not like they don't even like what American Italians are doing. They're like,
Oh
that's not it.
no.
Because for I don't know, I'd love to know what the history is of how Italian Americans, they made their own version of cuisine. Because,
Oh, I
Well, I
can tell
the
guess
you
spaghetti
that
meatballs. Oh yeah, do you know it?
I studied it deeply. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Most of the immigrants from Italy that first came to the US were from Sicily and from Sardinia. They were from the poorer parts of the country where they were eating beans and lentils and wild arugula and wild artichokes, whatever they could find, and improvising with the food. When they got to the United States, they found sausages and meat, and all these things became affordable as soon as the family had some sort of income. So these poor Southern Italians created a cuisine the way they imagined the rich Northern Italians were eating. So rather
Mm.
than just putting a little bit of beef in their ragu alla bolognese, they would put meatballs. They would make it better and bigger. Let's make a Sunday gravy, and we'll put ribs and sausages and this and that. So it was all the imagination of poor people as to how rich people ate, and that's how the American Italian cuisine developed.
I mean, it's a great story. It'll probably offend some of them, but I mean, look, you can't argue really with spaghetti and meatballs. I know Italians will get offended, but yeah, there is some they did make. There's a reason why they became so famous. But it's true. Americans always get shocked when they go to Italy. They're like, "What is going on?" They, mm,
I
yeah,
was sitting next to a gentleman in a restaurant once, and he was from New Jersey, and he was telling them they didn't know how to cook Italian.
yeah,
They're Italian food. I don't
right.
know. You need like my grandma to come teach you how to cook because first of all, you put the
Oh,
meatballs. I order spaghetti and meatballs. I got spaghetti on a plate. I got meatballs in a dish. What what's wrong with you people? He just didn't
that's a
get
classic.
it. He didn't
Oh
get
yeah,
it. And I had to explain to him sort of the history of Italian and American Italian. He goes, no, I ain't true because my grandma's Italian. It's like, was
yeah,
your grandmother born in Italy? No, but her grandma was. It's like, okay,
yeah.
it's changed.
No,
It's changed.
yes, exactly. Oh, and forget about pizza. They look nothing alike. you
Oh,
know.
nothing alike. I
Look at
prefer
that.
pizza in Italy.
Mhm.
I actually love the Venetian pizza, which not everyone does. It's like focaccia. It's very thick and
Mhm.
very lightly topped. You can get a
Light up.
slice of pizza that will have one piece of prosciutto and a sage leaf, and I love that.
That's fantastic. Oh, yeah, I mean, America has its own cuisine, but I don't, I mean, but all of it is changing, you know. Everything is changing. I mean, and I'm sure social media will drive a lot of that as well, you know.
I think it will, and I'm fine with food changing. I love to see how things evolve, but I also love going back to the really ancient things and going, how was this done? I collect historic recipes and
Mm,
try to find things what was available 2000 years ago. I have this strange skill that I've done for some historic societies, which is forensic recipe redevelopment, meaning that they'll give me a recipe from, say, a Wisconsin newspaper from 200 years ago, where it was, this is the kind of recipe. You'll want to gather as many eggs as you've got on a normal day if you have a regular flock. But of course, if you're in the country, it will be far too many. Then you want the
hmm.
butter from 2 cows, which is the perfect amount. In addition, you want as much chocolate as you can get from the grocer. A pound is not too much. And these were recipes, you know. I had to go back.
Yeah,
What's the normal flock of eggs in Wisconsin in this era? How much chocolate could you get? How was it measured? How was it weighed? You have to go back and do a lot of research to recreate these things. And what it essentially was the predecessor to the modern brownie, but it wasn't called a
mm,
brownie yet. And then I was doing a food tour in Wisconsin, and they were talking about the development of the brownies, and the name of the chef that supposedly invented them rang off in my head, and it was his grandmother who had printed this recipe in the Wisconsin paper. So he didn't invent the brownie; he adapted his grandmother's recipe.
Ah, tut,
no,
tut, tut.
no, it is very interesting because, yeah, but it's true when you see something. I mean, look, I've part of my family is English, and I used to get really upset in America when I would see trifle on a menu, because it just, because there's just different things. I mean, a trifle always has jello in it. It's always got jello, and in the US it never has jello. It
Yeah.
has,
No.
basically jelly or jam or whatever. And so I'll get furious about it because you can't help it, because it's when it does feel insulting. I've eased up on these things now, but it's funny that there's a place called Colonial Williamsburg.
Yes.
Speaking about the West, so I've been there and we did a photo shoot there, and they have a lot of, yeah. Their whole thing is to like take those recipes and preserve them, and they. But it seems they have a restaurant which sort of has some of the food. It is, but when you see what they were eating, it is a bit. What? Sometimes
Oh
they
yeah.
were eating that. It just seems just wild. Like, I mean, just stuff that we wouldn't eat. A
Well,
lot
I
of
mean, if
game.
you go back to Apicus, they were eating dormice.
Yeah, exactly.
Mice were very common
Well,
as
try
a food source.
Victorian times.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
try Victorian times when they had Victorian times where they were eating peacock tongues. I mean, just
Yes.
how thick is a peacock's tongue, you know?
Well,
How many peacocks do you need for a dish?
a lot of them, because
You
I
know?
love duck tongues, and they're very expensive frozen in the Chinese markets. And I love them, and I will get them maybe once a year and make duck tongues. They're incredible.
Huh?
So I'm guessing the peacock tongue was equally delicious.
There you
Yeah,
go.
but
I mean, you only have to take a trip to China to realize anything can be eaten. And I'm not saying about you pets or anything like that. They eat even more. When I went to Beijing, I went to there with my work. Again, they had an influencer conference, and I made the mistake going out with all the team from, I guess, Alibaba, that they can order for me, because that's what I typically do when I'm with someone else who's like, oh, you can order. I had no idea what was coming. I didn't recognize. I still don't recognize it to this day. It was just, and I'm someone that thinks that, oh, that I can eat anything. That's how I feel. There's nothing I don't like. I'll eat anything. I'll try everything. But that really shocked the system when it was like a blood soup with a fish head in it. I suppose that's, I didn't know why we're having that on a Tuesday. Of all the things you can
have
order.
you tried a beating snake heart in Vietnam?
Oh, there you go.
It's considered an honor. And anytime a chef visits a snake restaurant, they find out they've got a chef. And for some reason, I was recognized there. They gave me the beating snake heart. So they open the snake, they take the heart out with chopsticks, they dip it in this alcohol, and you eat the heart, you chew on it to stop the beating, and then you take a shot of this alcohol that has the blood from the snake added. And I did it because it was an honor, and I was there, and that's what you do. And I will never do it again, but I did it.
No.
But I'm sure it's pretty good for you. I mean, the English eat the blood sausage. I used to eat that black pudding.
No, I eat blood.
Yeah, so do the French. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I eat that. I like it.
But
yeah, me too.
Drinking blood. Yeah. I mean, I try and keep an open mind, but some things, progress in a good way. We don't have to. We don't have to eat that anymore. Yeah. Oh my! So that really, that really pushes my buttons because I hate mice. I mean, I don't know.
It pushes mine.
To just starve it out. I don't know.
I did taste rat when I was in Vietnam because there was a street stand that was selling roasted rat, and they were skinned and roasted whole with heads on and everything. And people were lining up. I thought, well,
no.
If it's this popular, I got to try it. I took one bite, and it was possibly the worst thing I'd ever put in my mouth. It tasted the way you would expect rat to taste, and that's about as bad as could be. But there were all of these kids around me looking at me like this, so I gave them the stick, and they all started to tear at it. They devoured it because for them it is delicious. And then a couple of alleys over, I saw where the rats were coming from. They had more kids killing rats by throwing rocks at their heads, and those were the rats that were going to the stall. So they were street rats.
The world is wild. You wake up one day and you think you have issues, and then you realize what's actually going on out there.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm so closed. I just realized how I've been living in a box.
Oh, that's my video that went viral. Germans live in a box.
Oh, really?
At the walls and the limitations make them feel secure. Yeah.
But
But you have to remember, in France, I mean, you don't have to go all the way to Japan to Vietnam or anything like that. We don't do it anymore. It's now illegal, except in some places, sometimes with some great chefs. But we had birds. Well, we still have them, thank God, called ortolans, and they're little birds. And you remember in Gigi, the film with Louis Jourdan, you eat the ortolan whole, the whole thing. No,
whole
dead,
and alive.
I don't know why. It just sounded so horrific. I thought it had to be even worse.
No, they eat them whole and alive, but they put a napkin over your eyes, or over your head, that covers your eyes so you don't have to see what's going in your mouth.
They're not alive. They're dead. They're cooked. They're roasted.
Yeah.
So I thought they were alive.
So then why is it necessary to eat them whole? It just is the way it's done.
Because they're tiny.
Yeah.
They're tiny.
Isn't it like a quail? I mean, I've had quail. I mean, quail was,
Oh, considerably smaller than quails. We eat quails every Friday during the summer at the market in France, because Friday is market day. So there's the guy with the quails and the chicken and the rotisserie, and everybody around the table has at least one or two quails. And
it's what I mean.
If the ortolan is cooked and eaten whole, why do diners cover their heads with the napkin?
I guess it's to feel the experience a bit more and make it, well, I mean, when they say whole, I assume they take the head off. I mean, that's not the
No,
most
they do not
interesting
take the
part.
head off, and they eat the
Oh,
bones as well.
Oh.
yeah, they eat the bones. They eat the whole thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Don't ask me. I've never eaten one. And you can't ask my dad. He's dead. So
But
Okay.
he's
you
eaten
have to
one.
find someone else. Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad
I mean, I know the
was.
tradition of it, that they used to blind the birds when they arrived in the kitchen to keep them in permanent darkness so that they would eat excessively, because a bird that cannot see will continue to eat. Um, anyway, it's banned, but it still is
Yeah.
eaten often,
Well,
even though it's
even
banned.
I know all this stuff is banned, but it's easy to get outraged, but it's the same as anything else. It's just what you're used to.
Absolutely.
That's it's it's
But
so I keep my prejudice to a minimum, because it's
Right.
but there's the things I eat on a daily basis. My sausage could be it's horrifying too.
I love sausage. Okay. The reason that they drape their head with a linen is to hide from God,
oh, cool. So let's add
because
religion
this
to this.
practice began in
Yeah.
a monastery, and that was it. The monastery knew that they were doing something wrong by eating these tiny birds, and so they hid from God.
Well, there we go. But
And
then
there's one
again,
restaurant serving them now, and it's 180 euros for one bird, because they're
oh,
endangered.
I'm sure my dad would have spent that without batting an eyelid.
Okay.
But you have to remember, we eat frogs' legs, which I absolutely adore, and snails, which actually
Oh, I love both.
eating.
I think
Yeah, but eating snails is just really an excuse to have garlic and herb butter,
Actually,
because
snails are eaten in
Yeah.
many different ways, including in Morocco. They're eaten in a mint sauce. So I've had snails without the garlic, and they're kind of delicious
no,
in multiple
indeed, yeah.
sauces.
Yes, a friend of mine who's since died was a chef in La Jolla and in
Mhm.
California, because I lived there for 10 years. And he made snails in a puff pastry with some kind of a cream sauce, and they were delicious. But then again, what is it? It's kind of like a rubber chew thing,
Mm.
I can relate to my dog now, but, but whatever,
That's right. Well, that's the thing. I guess what someone needs to make, and I haven't seen it on social media. Whether there has to be, but the issue with social media is the comments, isn't it? The comments can bring you down. That's one thing you learn about a creator. Because I remember you were saying earlier about the horrific, the things. We're so used to it. I mean. Because I get a lot of the emails. You should see the emails as well. I've opened some like horrendous things, and yeah, that's just the way it is. So, but I mean, ultimately, that would be cool to actually see a lot more of that.
A lot more of what?
Oh, just like strange. Different types of cuisines, and yeah, because on social media, even hearing about the history, because at this point, I mean, this is where everyone's getting their information. It needs to be broader than what is available, and it's also good for the kids watching it, because there's no context to these videos for them, but yet it's becoming their whole world.
Well,
I mean, I just learned a ton right now that I had never really heard of, and I travel all the time, and so it's yeah.
there's a
Well,
lot that can be communicated through videos. Way back in the day, well, way back about 10 years ago, I had 2 restaurants in New York, and the Food Network was always after me to do a show, and there were always these shitty contest shows that I hated the very idea of. And so I came back to them with a premise, and I said, how about this? How about we take journeys through time? So we go, say, to Rome, and we start with what? Pasta alla Grisha. Pasta alla Grisha. And how did this evolve and become amatriciana? And how did it become carbonara? And we walk through time looking at dishes as food has changed in a particular part of the world. And then maybe we end with a cooking segment. So we learn to make some of what we've learned about. We go, well, that's really interesting, but maybe we could team you with Bobby Flay. And
Oh
then the
yeah.
final segment could be, and I just walked away from these people because it was a contest. Who did it better? And I hate that whole style. You don't learn anything from a contest. And they decide the winner often before the contest takes place, I learned, unfortunately.
Oh no, of course. Oh, I knew all that, and the produce. Everything's scripted. It has to be, but the everything in life is timing, as we all know. All of these things go in phases, and so I do think that we're going into a phase where you could probably repitch this idea. People just go wherever the money is, and so a lot of this is what I learned about Hollywood. People are just trying to keep their jobs. So it's not about that whether your idea was good or not. That they have a job to deliver exactly what, or they lose their job. So they're not going to take a risk. So it's not really, so. But we're going into a phase now where that's already been done. They're all unemployed now anyway because no one watches those shows anymore, and we're going into a new phase. The cooking world is an open market at the moment. No one understands who's going to win. This is why you see Gordon Ramsay. He's teaming up with people he's finding on YouTube and trying to go on their videos, and because people are just blowing up.
Well, Gordon Ramsay is essentially a cliche at this point. He, became famous for screaming at people and insulting them. And once your career has become a cliche, people don't take you seriously anymore as a chef. People talk about him and they don't say what an incredible chef he is. It's, oh my God, did you see how he insulted that guy? He is part of shtick at this point, and I don't think he can escape that. His restaurants are failing at rapid rates.
Well, the truth is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, he's more of a businessman, and I believe he likes being famous. I think that was very important to him. Yeah. And you can see that because he's always chased what would keep him relevant. I remember I used to watch him. He was putting his daughter and him on TikTok when that became a thing. He was chasing that. So he's going to do whatever he can to stay in the game of fame. And the cooking was just a launch pad. But I think without the cooking, he would have pursued it in another way. So. So I mean, he's added a lot of value, but yeah, if you're a real purist with food, you know what that is. But I believe there is, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt. Sorry about that, by the way.
No.
The thing about Carl is he's slightly annoying.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Anytime, darling. You know me. The thing about Carl is that it sounds a little bit weird to say that, but he's incredibly modest because he not only is he cooks incredibly, but he does so much more. He smokes his meat. He does rillettes from scratch. He does this, and he's kind of modest, and he can cook frog legs. He can cook snails and all these things. And he really is really into food and its history. And he's actually quite an amazing guy. Sorry, threw you under the bus there.
Well, no, well, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that, considering some of even that idea. I think it's a fabulous idea. My wheels are turning because this is content that it's the time. I think everyone is so bored of what's going on social media at the moment, including the actual consumers of it. Everyone's looking at their life and saying, well, where is the value in it? It's there's so much about it. This is why all of these podcasts have come up and blown up, talking about deep things about how to be happy and much more emotional, spiritual things than they were before, because people are really looking for meaning. And there's something like that would work now. That format was the reason why, is because the TV was dying at the time. And so ratings were everything. This was their last ditch attempt to hold on to those ad dollars. So that's why they were behaving that way, because it was already over. And so it's just a time. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing how things play out, because things often do not go as I expect them to go. The Kennedy files were released, and so now we know it was the CIA in Israel, and then no one's really talking about it on mainstream media at all. It's like, all right, the CIA conspired with Israel to kill Kennedy so that Israel could have nuclear weapons. Got it. Next news cycle, what's going on now?
Yeah, I was, yeah, but it's like, because no one knows where did you get your information from? You see, because I've seen the Kennedy files released, but like there's so many people reporting on it. I think that it's become like a meme. I don't think anyone, because I've seen some people like, oh, have you seen the Kennedy files? Da, da, da. No, people are just posting it for clicks. So it's
I'm one of those nerds that went through and read all of the pages of the Kennedy files. Well, I read them all.
Well, it's someone like you that actually needs to make a video like that, because there's just nowhere to find it. If you look at, if people get offended if I bring up Candace Owen, but I can see that
bring up Candace Owen. Sometimes she has interesting things that she has to say.
She's blown up because she's spending time and giving real time to things that are being searched. Like the Blake Lively. People were searching Blake Lively. People are using it for clicks, but she's going all in. And there is a desire for longer form content around things. So if I found a video which actually did a deep dive on the Kennedy files, you're going to get views. Because, yeah.
Right. And the interesting thing about Candace Owen, her huge series was about Bridget Macron.
Oh, I watched the whole thing.
So did I. I was fascinated by that. And she did a deep dive, detail after detail after detail after detail after detail. And they offered her a lot of money. The Macron family offered her a ton of money not to do it, a ton of money to take it down. And then when it was all finished, they issued a nasty letter to her calling her transphobic.
Oh, and she read the whole letter out to us.
Yeah, she read the letter on the air, and I thought, someone's going to kill this woman, but man, she's got courage.
She is. There is a need, because there is no trust anywhere. We don't feel like we're getting told the whole story. The current administration they don't really give us a time of day. It's all just sound bites. We don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So there's no one, so if you can.
Carl does deep dives all the time. Deep dives. He really does. If something interests him, he will go,
Yeah, but that is how Candace blew up, because everyone was like, oh, have you seen the deep dive? So I actually would recommend that you make this video. I already know that I would watch it.
Well, I'm not going to make that video, but I would do a deep dive into the history of fried chicken. That would be the video I want to make, because the first written recipes for fried chicken don't come from Africa or all of the places we think they would come from. They come from ancient England and ancient Rome.
Well, that is a damning accusation.
Well, we just assumed because slaves made it in the U.S. South that it came from Africa. The first deep frying came from Mesopotamia 6,000 years ago. But the fact is that fried chicken had an even earlier incarnation in the UK, and it was with savory and sweet spices.
But that is the title of a video that goes viral.
Maybe we'll talk. Anyway, we are now to the end of our show. This has
Okay.
been, you have been the best guest, Naomi. This
Oh,
was
Oh, by
so
far.
I have
effortless
absolutely loved
and
talking to
easy
you.
and fun to talk to you. I have
Yeah.
the feeling if we went out to dinner, we'd do this for 6 hours.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
we have to say goodbye
Yes.
to our readers and leave a couple of minutes for commercials to be wedged in. So
Right.
thank you,
Thank
Natasha.
you.
And thank you so much, Naomi.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you
day.
so
Bye.
very much.
Thank
All
you.
right. I am going to somehow end our recording, which I'm terrible at. Manage recording. Stop recording. Goodbye, everyone.